But first, we want to bring you up to date on another whirlwind week for President Trump, who's now fighting a court order that puts a nationwide hold on his immigration travel ban. And early today, an appeals court denied an administration request to reinstate the president's order. To discuss that and much more, we're joined by the Vice President, Mike Pence. And Mr. Vice President, I want to start with that court order temporarily blocking the president's ban on travel. Federal Judge James Robart says the ban does, quote, irreparable injury in the areas of employment, education, business, family relations, and freedom to travel. Question, is there a danger to the U.S. now that these immigrants and refugees are again allowed to travel to the U.S.? And what do you think of that federal appeals court decision not to reinstate the travel ban?
Well, first off, from the very outset of his campaign for president and the outset of this administration, President Trump has made it clear he's going to put the safety and security of the American people first. And the executive order that he signed suspending travel from countries that have been compromised by terror is consistent with that objective. And also, Chris, it's consistent with his powers as President of the United States of America, both under the Constitution and under statutory law. It's quite clear that the president has the ability to determine who has access to this country when it comes to national security. And so we believe that we believe the judge made the wrong decision. The Boston court made the right decision. We're going to continue to use all legal means at our disposal to stay that order and move forward to take the steps necessary to protect our country.
But the Federal Court of Appeals didn't seem persuaded by that, and the judge in the case says that there is not a pressing safety issue. He notes the fact that there hasn't been a single terrorist act committed by anyone from any of the 7 countries on the president's travel ban since 9/11. Not one. Neither the lower court nor the appeals court seem to be persuaded, sir.
Well, I think that's why the judge's decision in the Washington court is so frustrating. And of course, it's different from the judge's decision at the district level in a Boston court. But look, we don't appoint judges to our district courts to conduct foreign policy or to make decisions about our national security. Under statutory law and under the Constitution, that authority belongs to the President of the United States. And while while the court did not impose a stay of that order at this point, we're going to move very quickly into the merits of this argument. And as the president said, we're going to win this argument because we're going to take the steps necessary to protect the country, which the President of the United States has the authority to do.
Mr. Vice President, let's turn to the sanctions that President Trump imposed on more than 24 entities related to Iran's missile program. Here is what his national security advisor, retired General Michael Flynn, had to say about that.
Instead of being thankful to the United States in these agreements, Iran is now feeling emboldened. As of today, we are officially putting Iran on notice.
With that notice statement by General Flynn, hasn't President Trump issued, in effect, his own red line on Iran? And if they continue with missile tests, how far is the president willing to go to try to stop them?
Well, as the president said this week in the Roosevelt Room, Chris, all options are on the table. The Iranians would do well to look at the calendar and recognize that we've got a new president in the Oval Office. That disastrous nuclear deal that the last administration entered into with Iran, as General Flynn said, should have encouraged better behavior by the Iranians. But instead, what we see, whether it be their flouting UN Security Council resolutions banning ballistic missile tests, or whether it be the way they're arming the Houthis in Yemen, who just last week attacked a Saudi Arabian ship, what we're seeing here is hostile action, belligerent action being supported by or taken by the Iranians, and we're just not going to put up with it anymore.
The president issued other orders this week, basically saying that he's going to revisit the Dodd-Frank regulations on the financial sector that were enacted after the 2008 crisis. Isn't this president sending a message to Wall Street that he's going to back off?
No, the message that we're sending to Main Street is that we're going to pull back this mountain of red tape that is stifling access to capital and loans, particularly for small businesses across this country, and we're going to get this economy moving again. I got to tell you, both on the campaign trail with the president and since the outset of the administration, in meetings with business leaders and labor leaders, they tell us that in addition to cutting taxes, that rolling back the avalanche of red tape that's stifling this economy and frankly stifling the availability of loans and financial resources for companies is of paramount importance. And the action the president took this week, surrounded by leaders in the Congress who've been working to reform, if not repeal, Dodd-Frank, is just the beginning of that effort. And we're going to continue to work hard while we protect consumers along the way. We're going to continue to work hard to advance the kind of regulatory reform that'll make resources and loans available for a growing America.
But, Mr. Vice President, the market spoke on Friday. The price of Wall Street firms, their stocks, rose sharply, and the fact is that two of the key players in revisiting the rules are going to be Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, and White House advisor Gary Cohn, and they are both former top executives at Goldman Sachs. That sure sounds like you're aiming at Wall Street, not Main Street.
Well, but you know, I understand that, and we're proud to have both of those men involved in this administration to bring their expertise. But look, the reality is that you can talk to small business owners across this country, and since the passage of Dodd-Frank, frankly, we've seen the availability of loans in banks across the country begin to dry up for small businesses. Simply the cost of compliance for smaller loans is too heavy in the wake of Dodd-Frank. That's what we're hearing from Main Street, and what you saw the president do this week is begin to roll back those regulations, use common sense, and really unleash the kind of resources that are going to make it possible to see small business America and all of business America grow and create jobs.
The president, in another action this week, nominated Neil Gorsuch to be his first nominee to the Supreme Court. And he said that if Democrats try to filibuster, Senate Republicans should change the rules so they can confirm him with 51 votes, not 60. Here is the president.
If we end up with that gridlock, I would say, if you can, Mitch, go nuclear.
And yesterday, Mr. Vice President, you said that Gorsuch is going to get an up or down vote, quote, one way or another, which raises the question, is it helpful for one branch of the government to be interfering or poaching somehow on another branch? I mean, is it helpful to set this up as some kind of standoff between the Trump White House and Senate Democrats?
You know, over the course of the campaign, President Trump made it clear that he was going to appoint for the vacancy on the Supreme Court a jurist in the tradition of the late and great Justice Antonin Scalia. And in Judge Neil Gorsuch, he's done that. This is someone who is extraordinarily qualified. His academic background is remarkable, from Columbia to Harvard to Oxford. He literally was 10 years ago, Chris, confirmed unanimously by the United States Senate. And we're very encouraged at this point that more than a half a dozen Democrats have committed themselves to an up or down vote on the floor of the Senate. Neil Gorsuch belongs on the United States Supreme Court, but no associate justice to the Supreme Court in American history has ever faced a successful filibuster, and Neil Gorsuch should not be the first. That's why the president and I have both made it clear we're going to work with Senate leadership, and one way or the other, Judge Gorsuch is going to get an up or down vote on the floor of the Senate, and we're confident that he'll be confirmed as the newest associate justice to the Supreme Court.
I want to pick up on that, because after President Trump sent out one of his tweets dismissing the judge in the immigration ban case as a, quote, so-called judge, the Democratic Senate leader, Chuck Schumer, said that just shows why there should be even extra scrutiny of Gorsuch, because there is a need for an independent judge to stand up against a president who's talking about so-called judges.
Well, I think it just shows, frankly, I just think it shows how Senator Schumer is going to reach to anything to try and continue to obstruct the nomination of Judge Gorsuch to the Supreme Court. But that's nothing new. I mean, I got to be honest with you. It's really been surprising to me since the advent of this administration to see the obstruction by Senator Schumer and Senate Democrats of one cabinet nominee after another. I'm going to be called on next week for the first time in American history as vice president to cast the deciding tie-breaking vote for a cabinet nominee. Chris, that's never happened in the history of this country, but I think it shows the level of obstruction by the Democrats in the Senate, and the American people are tired of it. They want to see the Supreme Court have a new justice. They want to see this president have his cabinet, and we're going to continue to work our hearts out for the American people to make sure all those things happen, despite Senator Schumer and his colleagues' obstruction of efforts.
And in 10 seconds, Mr. Vice President, how confident are you that you have the 50 votes so you can cast the tie-breaking vote to put Betsy DeVos in as Education Secretary? 10 seconds.
We're very confident that Betsy DeVos is going to be the next Secretary of Education. It'll be my high honor to cast the deciding tie-breaking vote on the floor of the Senate next week.
Mr. Vice President, thank you. Thank you for your time. It's always good to talk with you, sir. And I know you're headed here to Houston for the Super Bowl and that you're bringing 2 wounded servicemen with you. Safe travels, sir.
Thank you, Chris.